Crockett's memory begins to trickle back as his hold on his new crime empire gets shakier and shakier on today's Miami Vice. The dramatically titled Redemption in Blood was directed by Paul Krasny and was written by Scott Shepard and Ken Solars from a story idea by Robert Ward. All of those people are brand new to Miami Vice. The vast majority of Season 5 episodes were written by people who had never written for Miami Vice before. This is in sharp contrast to the past couple of seasons, where the bulk of episodes were written by a very small handful of writers. There are positives and negatives to this approach, but for this two-part season premiere at least, the new writers did a very good job of breathing life and energy into the series. We pick up right at the conclusion of last episode, where an undercover Tubbs comes face-to-face with an amnesia-plagued Crockett, who still believes he's Sonny Burnett, new head of the Carrera drug empire. While Peter Cetera's You Never Listen to Me plays, Tubbs tries to get through to his partner, and Crockett's memories begin to come back. Something in his brain short-circuits, though, because he recognizes Tubbs as a cop, but views him as an enemy. He whips out his gun to shoot him, and Tubbs makes a break for it. Crockett aims at him, then reconsiders and deliberately fires into the lighthouse wall. Crockett's goons take off after Tubbs, who successfully hotwires a jeep and gets away. Crockett has taken over the Carrera mansion and is living there with his girlfriend, Celeste, the former wife of murdered drug lord Oscar Carrera. Crockett has way too much drug money on his hands because he has bought Celeste her very own panther. Crockett and his murderous partner, Cliff King, continue to strengthen their hold over the Miami drug trade, though Crockett keeps having memories of his previous life as a cop return. Cliff and Crockett are becoming more and more distrustful of each other, and Cliff's violent style clashes with Crockett's more cerebral approach to crime. By the way, El Gato, the flamboyant drug lord who is still seeking vengeance for the murder of his brother, will pop up occasionally throughout this episode off on his own little side adventure. He won't cross over into the main story until the very end, but once again, Jon Polito throws himself into a larger-than-life performance. Meanwhile, Crockett has been getting plastered off of Perrier-Jouet Belle Epoque, which is an impractical beverage of choice for binge drinking. It's kind of like trying to get high by huffing Chanel No. 5. Celeste is getting increasingly frustrated with him, especially when he drunkenly mistakes her for his murdered wife, Caitlin. Then again, Crockett has to talk Celeste out of giving cocaine to the Panther, so neither of them are really making sound life decisions right now. The sequence is scored to Everything Inside of Me, which was written and sung by new Miami Vice composer Tim Truman, and it works very well. I love how money and power have made Crockett and Celeste kind of dissolute and worthless, by the way, and I love the decor of Crockett's sexy drug lair. He's spending all his ill-gotten gains on champagne jukeboxes, plasma globes, and panthers. If I'd been super rich in 1988, I would have spent my money the exact same way. Cliff secretly meets with Celeste, and after coming up with a hopelessly tangled metaphor involving farmers, male cows, and milk, he convinces her that Crockett is on his way out, and she should team up with him instead. So Celeste accompanies Crockett to a boxing gym. As they're leaving, she sends him ahead to the limo while she claims she has to go back for her purse. She has a change of heart, though, and she shouts a warning to him just in time to prevent him from being blown to pieces by a ginormous bomb in the limo. An injured Crockett wakes to find Celeste and a doctor fussing over him. He quickly realizes Celeste tried to lure him to his death and pulls a gun on her. However, after staring at his reflection in the mirror and seeming to have no idea who the startlingly handsome man looking back at him is, he gives her a comforting hug instead. Because while Sonny Burnett is a ruthless dick, Sonny Crockett is a big old softie. Then we come to what may be the single most magnificent sequence in Miami Vice history. Bold statement, I know, but this is brilliant. To the strains of Don't Give Up, the duet by the high-powered combination of Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush, Crockett wanders around Miami in confusion as his memories finally come back to him. He eventually wanders into Vice headquarters. He's swept up in what seems to be a nostalgic haze, and thus he fails to realize that everyone in headquarters, with the notable exceptions of Castillo and Gina, is pointing their guns at him. It's a beautiful moment. Tubbs is nowhere around, but Crockett talks to Castillo and Switek in Castillo's office. He explains that the memories of his past have come back to him, but his recent memories of his escapades as Sonny Burnett are now fuzzy. Switek asks him if he remembers shooting Tubbs. Crockett, who clearly does not remember, lets out a horrified little whimper at this, and my heart shatters into a million pieces every time I hear it. Upon being reassured that Tubbs was wearing a bulletproof vest and thus is still alive, Crockett lets Castillo arrest him. Tubbs visits Crockett in an interrogation room. Crockett tries his best to convince Tubbs to let him continue undercover, promising to bring down El Gato, Cliff King, and Salazar, the corrupt Central American comandante introduced last episode, but Tubbs doesn't trust him. As Switek is leading him off to be formally booked, Crockett overpowers Switek, steals his gun, and escapes. He pays a visit to Cliff, who gamely pretends to be delighted Crockett didn't die in the explosion, and they head to a biker bar to discuss a huge shipment of drugs coming in across the border, courtesy of Salazar. Cliff is extremely suspicious of Crockett and is watching him carefully, but Crockett slips off to a payphone while visiting the men's room and alerts Tubbs to the time and place of the drop. The drop is taking place in an abandoned water tower. One of Cliff's men recognizes Crockett as a cop, and it turns ugly for Crockett very quickly. Just as Cliff is about to kill him, Miami PD arrives. Tubbs and Cliff end up brawling on a catwalk. Tubbs dangles over the side, and before Cliff can kill him, Crockett shoots Cliff and pulls Tubbs to safety. Crockett and Tubbs have the briefest of reunions, and then Crockett scampers off to tie up a loose end. He finds Celeste in the Carrera mansion, packing up her things. He confirms that she's going to be alright on her own, and then they're interrupted by a gun-toting El Gato who is still looking for vengeance. Long story short, Crockett and Celeste end up feeding El Gato to the Panther. Another great episode. It's not quite as tightly plotted as last episode, and it doesn't have those great subtle character moments that I praised last time, but that moment when Crockett casually saunters into Vice headquarters and scares the pants off of all of his former co-workers is deeply satisfying, and the perfect end to this entire Sonny Burnett storyline. There are, of course, going to be a whole lot of lingering repercussions to Crockett's murderous exploits, and a lot of this season will focus on whether this is something that Crockett can ever fully come back from. I love this episode, and for an unprecedented third consecutive episode, I am giving out 5 flamingos. Next time, we will pay a little attention to Castillo, who's been neglected lately with all the chaos with Crockett. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you here then.